Alright, welcome everybody back to our lecture series. In this lesson, we're going to see how we perform indexing and accessing of elements within um, a matrix or a vector. So you have an array of numbers in a vector or a grid of numbers in the matrix. How do you access particular elements or a range of elements within MATLAB? So we're going to see how to do that today. So let's create a vector. Start off with vectors. So let's say 1 through, no, let me say 10 through 1. You know this is not going to work because the interval has to be negative. So 10 through 1. Alright, so if I want this here now, 10 is the first position, the first element in the vector. This is the second, third, fourth, fifth, going down all to the 10th. So this is 10 is in position 1 and 1 is in position 10. Right, so I want the first element of this vector, and what I do is I call the position inside a pair of parentheses. Right, so this here is position 1, this is 2, 3, 4. So I just pass in the position here or the index, and that will be the element that is passed as the response. So if I press this now, this is going to give me 10. Right, index 1, element at index 1 is 10. So 10 is going to be my answer. So if we do this 2, this will be 9. If we do this with 4, this will be 7. Okay, sorry, like 1. This will be 7. Like 1, 10 now will be 1. Right? So you get how it goes. Just passing the position or the index, and that is what the item, the element at that position will be returned back. Okay, so another way we could do this, let's do this with row vectors. Sorry, a column vector. Alright, so a column vector. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right, so same thing would apply here for your column vector. You just pass in the position. This is index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, so 1 would be 5, 4 would be 2, and 5 would be 1. Yep, so as simple as that. So let's do it one more time. Yep, 11, 14.5. Right, always remember that this the first element is in position 1, position 2, position 3, position 4. In most programming languages other than MATLAB, you will have that the first item or the first element will be in position 0, then subsequent 1, 2, 3, subsequently 1, 2, 3. Well, in MATLAB, they've made it easy so that first element is position 1, second 2, third 3, and so on and so forth. So let's try this now with matrices. So we create a matrix. So let's say 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. Nope, this is a bad example. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9. Right. Very good. Now, this is position. Okay, so for the matrix, it's kind of the same and kind of different at the same time. So let me explain. So let's start off with a simple way. We are going to use the indices. So what we're going to do is in the index we're going to pass in the row and the column for the particular element we want. Right, that's one way of getting the element. The other way is more you need more intuition to carry it out. Similar to the way we carry out the indexing for vectors. But let's see this method first. So we pass in the row and the column. So for instance, this number 1 here is in row 1 and column 1. 2 is in row 1, column 2. 3 is in row 1, column 3. 4 is in row 2, column 1. 5 is in row 2, column 2. 6 row 2, column 3. 7 row 3, column 1. 8 row 3, column 2. 9 row 3, column 3. Yes, that was difficult to say. So 1 1 is going to give me 1. Row 1 column 2 is going to give me 2. Row 2 column 2 is going to give me 5. Row this 6 now is in row 2 column 3. So if I pass in 2 3, this is going to give me that 6, right? So 9 row 3 column 3. Okay. So you just pass in the row and the column and gets the intersection. At the intersection you have an element, so that's the element that will be returned. Okay. So that's how to get a simple way of getting elements from matrices. Another way is by passing the index, same way you pass it in for vectors. So before I show you where we do it in matrices, let me show you the second way you can get elements from vectors. Right. So here we just passed in the index because it's one dimensional, so it just goes along the single dimension that the vector has. Right. So if it's a row vector, it just goes straight along the index and takes the index from 1 to the end. If it's a column vector, the same thing, just from 1 to the end, from the first row to the last row. If it's a row vector, from the first column to the last column, right? Because there's only one row for the row vector and there's only one column for the column vector. Well, let's see this again. Vec 1, 10 to 1, right? I could also pass in the same way I did for the matrix, pass in the row and the column. So row 1, column 3. So this is the only row is row 1. Column 3 would be position 3. That's 8. So this will give me 8. So for the vector, the row is always 1. And then you just pass in the index or the column of the number that you're interested in, right? So this is just similar to the way we did for matrices, just that in this case you only have one row, so the row will always be 1. If you pass in 2 here, for instance, there is no second row. Index in position 1 exceeds array bounds, right? Index must not exceed 1 for a row vector, right? It must not exceed 1 because you have only one row. You can't access a second row. Okay. So for vector 2, which is our column vector, a similar thing. We pass in the row, so the row now will be the index. So, and the column will always be 1 because you don't have more than one column. So this will be 5. So the row here is to serve as the index, that will be what changes. Okay. Right. So for vectors, you can either pass in the row and column or you just pass in the index. Now for matrices, we could do what we initially did for vectors, where we just passed in the index. Let's look at matrix 1 again. So in order to only pass in the index, you'd have to understand the matrix as a vector. So this here is index 1, index 2. Nope, I think I made a mistake. So let me show you so that I go. Index 1 will give me 1. Index 2, I believe it to be 4. Yes. Index 3 is 7. So this is how it goes. It goes down along the columns and then towards the right. Index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. Right? So down along the columns and then to, along towards the right. Down the columns towards the right. So index 4 now will be the 2 on column 2 position. Index 5 will be the 5 in column 2 and so on. So index 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This 3. Yep. So think of the matrix sort of like a vector, right? Where all the numbers have their own indices, their own positions. You just pass in the index and the correct um, elements is returned. But this is useful, especially for when you're looping through a matrix. Right? We'll see looping later on. But for our purposes here, we've now seen two different ways of accessing elements within matrices and vectors.